Back in the year 307, the first Panasonic rep made his way to the town square, and he held up a camera and it was very stable, and people were like, how is it so stable? That never happened. So I took the Panasonic G9 II out for a wildlife extravaganza with the new 100-400 Mark II and the Leica 200mm prime. I also had a 1.4 times teleconverter and did a bunch of weird stuff with that and some A7S III footage to compare. Let's battle them.
All I want is the perfect camera. All I want is the perfect camera.
So right now we're actually on the Panasonic G9 II with the Sirui 24mm 1.2 Tonys. I'm going to review this lens in another video, but here's my first impression. Wow. Nice. So when it comes to this lens, I'm just going to say this. They updated the focus mechanism. It's smoother. It's definitely smoother than the original, but it's still kind of the same. Like once you get to 300-ish, if you're going slow, it's like stuck, it's struggling. It's no like Sony G Master smooth or something like that. So I don't know, you updated it, but you didn't really do it good enough. Everything else is basically the same, except that you can use teleconverters now and you can lock it. It's so weird because I put my teleconverter on and then I stopped it down and then I saw a warning on the screen that said, you can't do that. Oh my God, you stop it. Put this thing on. So there's a switch to prevent you from doing stupid things, but if you didn't turn the switch on, you do the stupid thing and then you just get punished. So I don't know if I damaged the rear element of that or the front element of my teleconverter. How dare you, baby boy? So the first thing I noticed was that bees exist and they're beautiful in 300 frames per second. I wanted to get a lot of 300 frames and also the 4K 120 and test some of these crops, because you can add the teleconverter pixel to pixel crop and then like electronic stave on top of that. You end up with insanity. But 300mm, 100-400, not bad. Not bad. The Tonys are fairly smooth Tonys, and it's no Leica prime, as we'll see, of course, but it's a serviceable lens, very stable, very nice. 800mm reach, that's not bad. If we want to switch on into 4K 120p, we welcome back autofocus. And so you can put a little single box on a duck, and I found it very reliable. It's no animal eye detect, that disappears. Thank you so much, Panty Boy, for restricting me. But whatever, you dive deep for that firmware update, Panty Boy, and you let me know when it's on its way, and I will consider accepting your free gift of the Panasonic G9 II. But something I've noticed about using Panasonic for wildlife is just such rich colors, like a filmic look. Super sharp and super stable. It's like you cannot beat it, especially if you're in 300 frames per second getting fly footage, you know what I mean, or bee footage. It's like it's so stable and slow and cinematic, and it doesn't have to be the sharpest thing ever. Like people are like, oh, I can do 8K wildlife in 30 frames per second. There's no magic there. 300 is where you see this stuff. I never knew a bee had those like arm things or the legs, big bumps. He lifts weights. I can see it. You want to see utter insanity? This freaking heron was like 90 light years away from me. I'm at 400mm. He was so far away. I decided to put every crop I could think of on the business. We did the teleconverter on there. We did the pixel to pixel. We went to HD to get the pixel to pixel even further, and electronic stave on high. I'm not saying I got very close to him, but I kind of did. So here's the original heron, 400mm, no teleconverter, no nothing, and then boom. It's not the sharpest thing you ever seen. There was probably a bunch of leaves in front of me. That kind of hindered things. Yes, I did win an award for this footage, actually. National Geographic contacted me. They wanted to know how I achieved the clarity, much like this video, where I'm always in focus at 1.2. And I didn't tell them. They don't deserve to know. So back to just some normal shots. Here's the night heron at 4K 120p all the way zoomed out with the 1.4 times teleconverter. So it's 210mm. You can't zoom out all the way to 100 on the lens once you have the teleconverter on, or it'll smash your element like it did mine. And then if you zoom in, you do lose focus, unfortunately. But once you gather yourself, 560mm, not bad. Full frame torque, that's like 1120. Perfectly stable handheld, kind of stable. Pretty stable. But that's some serious reach, man. 1120 mils handheld, like no problem. There's some like swaying motions. It was windy, but like it's better than my Sony at 600mm. Like it's totally doable. Here's a pixel to pixel crop. Like you can get so close. It's not like super sharp footage anymore, but it's somewhat good enough. And this is that same bird in HD 120 with all these crops and pixel to pixel, and it's like, holy cow. Only the environmental haze will limit you. Now the real important info is the animal eye detect is only usable up to 4K 60p, but it does work in 4K 60. It's nice. It just sucks that I'm kicked out of the best mode of 4K 120. But when I did use it, it was like so rock solid. I mean, I'm coming from the Fuji X-H2S, which had animal eye detect, and it was constantly hunting all the time. It was completely unusable and probably still is. This Panty Boy eye detect, like it was latching, especially when I switched to the superior Leica 200mm prime. Oh my god, right now, 4K 60, animal eye detect latching on. Terrible shot with all the stuff in the grass. I saw this great heron off in the distance. I really wanted to believe that pixel to pixel and electronic stable on high could work, but seeing all the footage, I was like, oh, that is unusable. I got a lot of wasted shots. But if you're comparing it to A7S III footage of sparrows in 240 frames per second, I don't know, like they're very comparable systems. It's just the Sony is much heavier, and now like Panasonic can do autofocus, but like I can do autofocus in 240p. I don't usually, but you can and it works. Panasonic cannot do that very well. It's still hard to beat the A7S III, especially with that super sharp 9 million dot viewfinder. I mean, the Panasonic G9 II has the same viewfinder as the GH6 did, which wasn't very good. It's serviceable, but like you gotta go through some hoops and like turn monochrome black and white viewfinder on and then red peaking, and then you can manually focus quite well. But like you have to do that, and then it's weird spotting like cardinals. They're red usually, but they're gray when you look at them. It's like, oh, this sucks. Whenever I'm shooting wildlife, I'm constantly switching back and forth between like 4K 120 or HD 300 on the Panty Boy or 240 on the Sony. Like, it's very situational. When you see a bee, I always switch into the slowest frame rate possible because it makes it so magic. Anything that moves super fast, whereas like this bird shot, like that did not deserve 300 frames per second, really. He was just standing there, so it would have looked much nicer in 4K 60. Except when he flies to the top of another leaf. Wow. And then he slowly gathers seeds. Okay, I should have switched there. You never know what to do. You really don't. See, 4K 120, it's much sharper, it's much nicer, and it's nice to be able to switch very easily with the custom modes in Panty Boy. On Sony, you have to hold down the button while you turn the knob. That's always a bitch. It's funny, up to this point, I was getting a bunch of bullshit shots of things super far away, and then I walked back. I was like, I'll do another loop around, and that great heron flew really close to the bridge, and the sun was like backlighting him, and I was like, oh my god, the magic. So I put the 200mm with the teleconverter, 4K 120p. I don't remember if I was autofocusing or not, but I switched into animal eye detect eventually. Here's with pixel to pixel, so that crops in even tighter. Just wanted to see if I could get some more detail, if he ever glances up at me. Ah, thank you. Thank you for looking over here. But here's the star, the animal eye detect in 4K 60p, even with the teleconverter. Like, it was latching on. There was just a box. It was getting his eye there. That right eye somehow was like latched right on. It never left it. Like Fuji would be hunting in this situation. Sony doesn't even let you try on their A7S III. Nikon would probably do it, but not bad, panty boy. The background is obliterated with the 200mm so smooth, the Tony. I got even closer to him. I moved around to the side and it just latches right on the eye. It never hunts. It's totally trustworthy. Like even the tiny birds, it was picking up tiny birds from far away, but you have to be in 4K 60, which no one ever would. Now, one of the selling points of this lens was when you do the 2x teleconverter, or even the 1.4x, you can get like some better than full life macro. I tried it later, but first on the 200mm prime. This is in pixel to pixel in HD 120 with the teleconverter. It's basically a macro lens. That's crazy. Even though it's HD, it looks pretty good unless the wasp leaves your focal plane. Oh man, that is rude. Oh, the fly, he took off, he knew. Oh, we're no longer in focus, Tom. Let's get out of here. I regained the focus. You don't know that I couldn't. But here's where I did the 100 to 400 with the 1.4x teleconverter HD 300 just because I thought maybe it wouldn't be stable. So this is as close as you can get. Minimal focus distance. I mean, that flower was tiny. But then if you punch into 120 frames pixel to pixel mode, like it's a whole nother world. And like there was even a little tiny bug somewhere crawling around that like you would never see it. You probably couldn't see it with the human eye. Where is he? Do you see him? A little bug. Oh, he's a little bug. He's barely like the size that you can detect. He's otherwise invisible to your life. I stopped down to 2.8 Tonys just to see maybe I'm now in focus for the first time. That could be fun. So honest review of using the G9 II with this lens and the Leica Prime. I'm not sure that this is the lens you go for. It's just that Prime is so beautiful. I know it's super expensive, but you can find them used. You can't beat that, but it's not much reach. That's the problem. This gives you that reach, but then your 6.3 Tonys, that kind of hurts, and it's quite heavy for what it is. It's the Leica glass. It's not like it's a kit lens, but I don't know. And then the zoom's kind of stiff. It's not like the ideal travel setup. I wish they were coming out with like a 100 to 300, 5.6 or something. That's generous. It should be a 4 and smaller than this somehow. But like, I don't know. Do you need 800mm? Not really. And then like using teleconverters on this already? Like, no. 600 is more than enough for normal wildlife. So it's a bit overkill. And then dark. With a teleconverter, it's like you're at Tony 8. I don't know, man. But the G9 II in general for wildlife, fantastic. I'm usually manually focusing anyway. The fact that I can actually switch into 4K 60 and get animal eye detect on some difficult to see thing. Cool story. And then HD 300 leads the industry. And it looks pretty good. It's a little soft. It's a 1080p, but for the right moments, when you're close to a subject, that looks much better than if something's far away. And if the lighting's good enough, you have magic on your hands. And then you could, in theory, just bring this lens and the Leica 9mm, and that's your travel vlogging setup, and you also get to do wildlife in that city. You go to a city, you see their parks and forests. That's fun. It just sucks that the Fuji XS20 with the 70 to 300 is the lighter setup with the bigger sensor. But it has its quirks of its own. If you want to vlog with it, Stabe is useless. It's not as much reach as this, but I find it's good enough. Its slow-mo has crops, so it's like 18% crop for 4K 60, 29% crop for HD 240, so you're getting some extra reach, and then your sensor's probably similar size to Panty Boy. But I've been quite impressed so far with the Panasonic G9 II as a vlogging camera, YouTube studio stuff, and wildlife. There's nothing it can't do. It's a jack of all trades and master of most of them. Not many flaws. Just this lens, maybe. But so far, so good. How you doing? What do you think of the footage? Is there something better than this? You're getting close to top notch. I don't know about that lens. Mark II is a very debatable topic. It's okay. It's no Leica Prime. I'll leave. Subscribe for more videos, Santa.